I've been talking about food logging as an excellent way to educate yourself in terms of what you're eating and connecting the dots between what you're eating, how you're feeling, and the results you're getting. And so in this video, I want to give you some quick tips on food tracking. And the first thing that I would suggest to make it super easy is to download the app MyFitnessPal, and it is right there. So we're just going to go into MyFitnessPal and I'm going to walk you through some tips on how you would food log. So you're just going to go to the bottom and it says diary, and it's very intuitive, this app, and you don't necessarily need to buy the paid version. So I'm just going to give you an idea of how quick it is for me to log my breakfast. So my log is empty. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add food. And now, as you can see, it kind of pre-populates with all the foods that I've been adding. And usually this is my trick for the morning. I always have coffee with cream because that's my guilty pleasure. So I'm just going to punch in cream and it comes up with cream. But then at the bottom, it comes up with all the common foods that I usually have for breakfast. So not only am I going to log my cream, I have my post-workout shake. I added a recipe, so I can click that. If I put collagen in my coffee, I can add that. Usually I'm going to, often one of my breakfasts is oatmeal, so it'll say oatmeal, blueberries, like all the things. So then I can just click, 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 and then my breakfast is logged. All right, so that's a quick way to log. Once, like I said, the app gets intuitive once you start adding food. So let's go go through a couple other quick tips. When I want to add food, let's say I want to add ground chicken. All right, so I'm just going to type ground chicken in the search bar and search, and then you'll see that there's quite a few things that come up. I'm always going to try and choose the one that has a green check mark because that means that it's verified. So MyFitnessPal is kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of people adding foods to the app, and so not all foods are 100% correct. So if it kind of looks a bit iffy, if it doesn't have a green check mark, I might just check another one and check the numbers on it to see if it looks, fairly similar. And then I would just choose one. So you can't always choose a verified food, but it's nice when you can. And the thing is that, even manufacturer food labels can be up to 20% off. So logging food is kind of it's ballpark at best. So I don't want you to get too overwhelmed with the food logging process. And, even if you just start logging one meal a day, just to start to get familiar with what the logging is, it helps you to connect the dots, like I said, between what you're eating, how you're feeling, and the results you're getting. And so, just don't get too overwhelmed with the logging process. The next thing that you're going to look for is you're going to look for the serving size and that is, it's pretty hard to do this. So here it says 100 grams, but you'll notice that I could log it in grams, in ounces, in pounds. So it's not likely I'm going to have a pound of chicken. So usually what I'll choose is I'll usually choose the 1 gram, because then when I weigh my food, if I have 127 grams, I don't have to do any math. Or maybe I'll put 100 grams, so I'll put 1.27. So MyFitnessPal makes it super easy for you to set your serving size, but you can always check for that serving size. You want to be able to use a food scale. You want to use a food scale for solids and cups for liquids, and that's really helpful. Let's say, I'm going to just show you when you're logging food. See there how there's this barcode right there? Well, what's really great is if you're having a packaged food. I think I have a protein bar in here. Yep. So I have this RX bar, and so what I would do is I would hit the barcode and then a camera comes up and I can just put the barcode, just scan it, and there's all there. I can log my, I can log anything with a barcode. A pro tip is if all the foods you're logging has a barcode, you probably need to be adding more fruits and vegetables. Although you'll notice that even some meats from grocery stores, you'll be able to log a barcode. So that barcode is really super helpful. Now, the other thing is to keep a running tally of how many, what you're intaking, is just hit the top bar here, and you're going to come up with a couple screens. Today, you can show the macros, the nutrients, the macros, the nutrients, the calories. So with my clients, what I suggest is I give a macro profile whereby maybe you have 150 carbs in the day, 50 fats, and 100 grams of protein. So not to, take money out of the pocket of MyFitnessPal, but you don't necessarily have to buy the paid version. You can just use that screen to figure out what your numbers are. And if you know what your numbers are, you don't have to set the goals on MyFitnessPal to specific macros. You just put a little note by your food scale or wherever you do your logging, and that's going to help you to, hit your macros for that day. One thing that was confusing that confused one of my clients that I didn't anticipate was, she was like, well, what's this business about grams? Like, I have 100 grams of chicken here. Is that 100 grams of protein? So that was a great question, because the actual weight is the weight, and the say 20, so 100 grams of chicken might be maybe 20 grams of protein. That's kind of the molecular weight, or of the elements that make up that chicken. So don't get confused with the weighted grams and the grams of protein, carbs, and fats. And the thing is every food is made up of those macros: carbs, proteins, and fats. So there's, even in chicken, there might be a little bit of fat. So if you're food tracking, the idea is not just to blindly food track. The idea is to track the food and then notice, because food tracking is a tool that we use to understand what the food that we're eating. But it's not a skill that we necessarily want to be, or it's not something we necessarily want to do for the rest of our life. But if we're food tracking for the purpose of education and noticing, oh, this much chicken has this much protein and this much fat, when you go to a restaurant, or eventually, you don't necessarily have to even track. It's like, oh, I need to have about this much chicken per meal. That's how much protein I should have. Oh, I should have this much protein over the course of the day. So so if you're connecting the dots between the food tracking that you're doing and what the nutrients are, how you're feeling, and your results, then you don't necessarily have to food track for the rest of your life. I found it very, very helpful. I started food tracking in like over 30 years ago, and that was with a pen, a paper, and a calculator, and it was pretty tough, and a nutrition almanac. So every food I put on the scale, then you check it in the nutrition almanac. And that was just because I wanted to learn what was in the foods, what was happening with my body. At the time, I was doing a physique contest, so I had the fear of being in a bikini on a stage, so that kind of motivated me to food track. And it did take time, but this takes no time at all with MyFitnessPal once you commit to food tracking, and it's an excellent tool. So if you want me to create macros for you, or tell you exactly how many fats, proteins, and carbs you have, that's like getting a roadmap so that you have less delays and detours along the way to your destination of whatever your goal is. That's really handy for you. But even if you don't work with me to get that personalized plan, food tracking is an absolutely fantastic accountability tool, because if you make the promise to yourself, I'm going to food track before I eat. Let's say you're going to have an Oreo cookie. you scan the bag and you see the serving size, it's more likely that you're going to keep a smaller serving than eating the whole bag once you see, this has got a lot of empty calories or calories that are not nutritionally beneficial, that might not fuel my body. You're more likely, to eat more supportively. And then especially when you have someone like me spying on your MyFitnessPal, because we can share, then you're more likely to be eating more supportively. So if you want personalized profile of macros, then let me know. But use these tips to help you meet your your nutrition goals. Use the free app MyFitnessPal as an excellent accountability tool, and there you've got some hacks.